Hey everybody, welcome to the show Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you on this Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Holy crap. It's been quite a week. So we got some fantastic stories that we're going to present to you today, including I'm going to talk about Paul Manafort. He was sentenced yesterday. So I have a few thoughts on that, as does AOC. We also have Bill Shine. So that's somebody that's in the White House or was in the White House, and talk about that as well. Then Chelsea Manning. That's the big story of the day. We're going to talk about Chelsea Manning, what's going on with her, and how that is an attack on free press. So that's a very, very important story. Then we'll have a little bit of fun. You'll never guess what a congressman did to a Trump official. Arguing for more oil and gas exploration. So that's fun. That's an awesome story. You guys are going to love that. So we'll get into that. Like I said, we got a fun show today. But before I get into it, of course, I want to thank everybody for first tuning in. Also, thank you for, super chats. Thank you. Appreciate that. Camera fund. That's right. We're getting close. We're getting really, really close on the official camera fund. I know a lot of people are wondering where what I'm going to, do, what kind of camera I'm going to get. For the moment, I haven't figured things out. Haven't been really looking into it as of late because I'm moving, trying to move. So there's been a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. And so I'm just going to wait for a bit, get settled in. Once we do actually find out when we're going to move, get settled in, do some research, figure it out, and we're going to get the camera. We'll probably have it by summer or beforehand. So we'll have that. And don't worry, we got plenty of time to get it too, so that I can make sure that I get the right one, make the right purchase, get something that I want to get that's going to work for both the show and those rallies and trips, which thankfully it is the start of the primary season. And we're not actually going to get really heavy into it until later. So that's good. That gives us plenty of time to figure it out. Not that I'm going to take that long, but we'll get the camera and I'll show you guys. I'm gonna let you guys see what you have bought and what you've helped us get. And so I can't wait to show you guys once I make the decision. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I know, right? I might have to. I might have to name the camera after L for donating so much. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. So, I have a couple of people to thank first on that. I have Lee Neely, who donated money to the camera fund, and I Ahmad. So, thank you, I Ahmad. Thank you, Lee Neely, for donating the campaign. Thank you, Elwell, for also donating to the campaign through the super chat. I appreciate that. Then we have patrons. So I reorganized the Patreon. So some things might not work correctly. But if you're in the $1 tier, basically what you're getting is you're getting a shout out for supporting independent progressive media. People who are 3 and above get the full show without ads. So like this stream that you watch today, you can watch it anytime on YouTube, but there are no ads whatsoever, and all the breaks are cut out. So that's kind of cool. And then I'm also working on podcast, trying to get something up on iTunes, so you guys can download the show as well. So you can podcast it. I know some people like to, walk their dogs or whatever when they're listening to the show and all that. So I want to be able to get that to you guys as well. Then also people who are, $5 and stuff, get that. And then get things like behind the scenes, which I'm going to start working on that as well. So all that stuff, I'm trying to make it more worthwhile for you who support us. So because it's more important than, it's the most important thing to do, right? On how to support independent progressive media. So, okay. Anyway, let's move on. One more. I think there was one more thing that I had today. Channel members. That's right. Channel members. So we have a new channel member, William Lamb. So thank you as well. I think once we get to a sufficient amount of size, like say like 100 members or so, I'm gonna look at maybe doing a members only stream. So that will be completely troll free. So that'll be great because I know we really don't have that big of a problem with trolls, to be honest with you. But a members only stream for like, if we have over 100 members or 150, whatever I figure out, you guys might like that, be able to take that as an option, you can support the show and also stay away from the annoying trolls, which would be great. I'm sure you probably would like that. Okay. So. All right. Now, let's let's move on. Let's get into the show. Oh, yeah, please like and share the stream, too, if you haven't already. That helps out greatly, too. Okay. Now, Paul Manafort was sentenced Thursday to nearly 4 years in federal prison. So the charges, of course, range from tax evasion to bank fraud. This is one of several trials that Paul Manafort is going to have, or I should say several sentencing hearings that Paul Manafort will have for the numerous amount of crimes that he has been found guilty of committing. Now, for these specific charges of bank fraud and tax evasion, he was facing a possible 20 years in prison. Now, the judge, in this case, T.S. Ellis, went actually super soft on him. He ended up actually getting about 4 years. So that's 47 months. And so that's a really light sentence compared to what he had actually been facing previously. Now, the judge said that though Manafort had committed serious, very serious crimes, yes, he also said that Manafort had, quote, lived an otherwise blameless life and earned the admiration of many. Who are those people that admire Paul Manafort? Really? Look, I don't see why, but okay. Now, here's the thing. Paul Manafort screwed the government out of millions of dollars in taxes. He literally hid $30 million of his money that he got from lobbying for Ukraine as a foreign agent and then stuck it away overseas. He stole $30 million. And not only that, but the money that he had left, of course, he used to buy ridiculous things. For example, he spent $15,000 on an ostrich leather jacket, $2 million on home TV and internet setups. Now, look, I'm not saying like, oh, you should never be able to have any of that stuff. No, but you shouldn't be able to commit bank fraud and hide money in taxes from the government and live that kind of opulent lifestyle. In fact, prosecutors wrote that Manafort, quote, had an expensive lifestyle that required lots of money to maintain and used that as important proof as to why he would commit bank fraud. So he's not a good guy. Those are the choices that he made. So he did all this stuff. He had very expensive tastes and he defrauded the government and stole money and did bank fraud, all in order to be able to continue living that opulent lifestyle. Come on. He's guilty as sin. And yet, he gets 4 years. Oh no, I'm very embarrassed. Oh, I'm very embarrassed. And I'm humiliated. Well, he should be. Now, in addition to 47 months in prison, Ellis ordered Manafort to pay a $50,000 fine and approximately $24 million in restitution, and to spend an additional 3 years in federal supervision. Ellis said that the 9 months Manafort has already spent in jail should count against his total sentence, which, of course, that made the prosecutors furious, because they argued, and this is Greg Andrews, he said that the defendant had made criminal choices as recently as 2016 and 17, referring to additional offenses Manafort committed while under indictment in a related case in Washington. He is a criminal. He is a, long-time criminal. And his criminality flew in the face. Hey, look, this guy made a plea deal, went back on that plea deal, and then got caught. His criminality is obvious. Obvious. And he had no remorse for doing any of this stuff. No, his only remorse is, hey man, I got caught. Now I feel bad. Now I'm embarrassed and humiliated. Now, in fact, this is what Greg Andrus said. He said, Mr. Manafort himself made criminal choices, and those choices have consequences. Mr. Manafort broke the basic civil covenant in this country. You have to pay your taxes. Now, of course, there are some people out there saying, oh, this decision wasn't political, etc. But look, in reality, there's always politics involved, one way or the other, right? And so this shows people that, hey, go ahead, don't pay your taxes, because you're not going to get punished as much. Or, if you don't pay your taxes, don't get caught. Don't get caught. And then you can almost completely get away with it. Now, they also pointed out that he was the mastermind of a years-long scheme to defraud American banks and taxpayers out of millions of dollars he amassed through years of illicit lobbying work on behalf of a pro-Russian political faction in Ukraine. Now, this has nothing to do with Russian collusion, etc., right? And made sure to point that out. Then the judge himself actually thought that the Mueller investigation is not a good thing, right? He actually publicly said negative things against the Mueller investigation and said, oh, the only reason that you're trying to throw the book at this guy is to get him to sing against Donald Trump. So we're not the ones making it political. It looks like the judge made this political. Now, they've said he did not pay taxes on his massive wealth, hid money in several foreign bank accounts, and lived extravagantly, as I pointed out. But here's the thing, right? Here's why I didn't get punished. Because rich people don't get punished the same way that we do. And by we, I mean regular people. But then there are people who are African American, Latino, minorities, who get punished even worse. There are people in prison right now with much harsher sentences for possessing drugs. You can literally get put away for life, and people have been, for having a joint. You think the judge would go lenient on those people? No, of course they don't. No, there are people in prison for longer than Paul Manafort for stealing $30. Manafort stole $30 million. And yet, we're going to feel sorry for them? We're going to feel sorry for Paul Manafort and give him a very short sentence in a likely minimum security facility? You've got to be kidding me. Now, in case you're confused on my argument, right? I'm not saying we should bury Paul Manafort under the jail and lock him up for 150 years. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is maybe we need to have some better standards in sentencing, because we seem to have a lot different standards in sentencing going on. Look, and of course, part of that is federal sentencing guidelines, right? So some of those guidelines are arbitrary, some of them are wrong, and there's a justice system that, of course, is stacked against regular people and against especially people of color. We need to fix that. But what I want here is parity, right? So, look, if Paul Manafort can steal $30 million or shield it from taxes, etc., then we should be able to be a little bit more lenient on somebody who steals $30 or selling untaxed cigarettes. There's a man, Eric Garner, who was literally choked to death by police officers for, not at the time, but for having before, sold untaxed cigarettes. They're 30 cents or whatever. But no, Paul Manafort gets 4 years for stealing $30 million. Eric Garner loses his life for 30 cents. Is that justice? Is that justice? That's not at all justice. That is injustice. Look, man, going back to Ellis here, he said that the sentencing guidelines, which called for 20 to 24 years in prison, would be, quote, excessive. Did they say anything about how Eric Garner's death was excessive? About how, putting people away for marijuana, for cocaine, for drugs, for nonviolent offenses? Is that excessive whenever it's a poor person? Whenever it's a black person? No. There are two justice systems. There's one for us, and then there's one for the rich. Judge Ellis probably looked at him and thought, well, man, look, he's just like me. There, but for the grace of God, go I. He's an affluent white man. Yeah, he's made mistakes, and, he's admitted to them, and now he's paying the price, and he has to pay a price. But let's not be excessive. I mean, he's old. He's almost 70 years old. I mean, I'm not going to put him in for the rest of his life. No. Couple years, and then he can go back to try to live what's left of his life. Or whatever, man. Whatever. Look. He's only embarrassed. And I mentioned the humiliated and embarrassed, etc., right? This is what Manafort had said for doing this. No, he was embarrassed about getting caught, right? He was only humiliated for getting caught. And I don't think he at all cared about the crimes that he was committing while he was committing them. I think he is somebody who doesn't have remorse whatsoever. And you can look at the pattern of criminality that he had exhibited for decades, right up until he got caught. No. Look, Manafort, by the way, Manafort's not out of the woods. He will be sentenced again, apparently next week, in a related case in Washington where he faces an additional 10 years in prison after pleading guilty to conspiracy charges for failing to report that he is an unregistered foreign lobbyist. Not only that, but he also faces charges of witness tampering. Now, in that case, there is a different judge. So, maybe, hopefully, he will actually get a fair sentence and end up going away for a long time for the criminal that he is. Lock him up. Lock him up. Okay. All right. Moving on. More reaction to this. Oh yeah, I didn't set that up. It's okay. So yesterday, Paul Manafort was sentenced to 47 months in prison for defrauding banks and tax evasion. Now, AOC had responded to this by calling it proof that the criminal justice system is broken. Now, on Thursday evening, MSNBC's Ari Melber had tweeted out that the sentence is, quote, far below the recommended 20 years, despite extensive felonies and post-conviction obstruction. Now, the sentencing guidelines for a crime like this is 20 to 24 years. He's getting roughly 4 years. And, of course, he is also going to be getting another sentencing next week, different judge, for working as a lobbyist, a foreign agent that is undeclared, as well as witness tampering. That was also aforementioned. Now, AOC, after this tweet, and I'm going to read the rest of it here, he said, this is a reminder of the blatant inequalities in our justice system that we all know about, because they reoccur every week in courts across America. Now, pointing out that what we have is not a justice system in America, but we have a two-tiered justice system where we have people who are rich and powerful, like Paul Manafort, getting vastly reduced sentences on crimes that would, for a regular person, in comparison, would send them away for the rest of their lives. Again, we have people in jail for smoking a joint that are serving far longer sentences than Mr. Manafort. Now, AOC pointed that out. She said, quote, Paul Manafort is getting such little jail time for such serious crimes lays out for the world how it's almost impossible for rich people to go to jail for the same amount of time as someone who is lower income. In our current broken system, justice isn't blind, it's bought. Now, those are strong, strong words, right? And I think she's correct. Again, you can get a life sentence for selling pot. $20 worth of pot to an undercover cop. That's what happened in one instance. Or, you know, there's plenty of instances of people who are African-American getting caught with weed. There was a guy doing research for the story who stole a slice of pizza and got sent away for life under the California's 3 strikes law. That stealing a piece of pizza from somebody was enough of a crime that, again, hey, 3 strikes, you're out. You're going to prison for the rest of your life. There is something wrong with our justice system. And part of it, again, mandatory minimum sentences, of course. Some of the sentencing guidelines are really messed up, arcane, and need to be fixed. But also the fact that there are people with wealth and money, wealth and power, that are able to shape the system to only really punish people who are poor and to at least have vastly reduced sentences for people who are wealthy. So, I mean, look, that's not a justice system. We don't have a justice system. We have an injustice system, and we've got 2 different sets of rules. And there are numerous cases of corporations and the rich paying fines or getting reduced sentences, even in situations where people are dead. Yeah, you can just think of some of the car companies who, you know, knew they had defects in their products, Those defects went on to kill, I think, 11 people related to some of the airbags in one of the car companies, one of the big 3, and nobody went to jail for that. They got slapped with a fine, and that's it. All while they made a lot of profit. So, look, if that isn't indicative of a major, major problem with criminal justice, I don't know what is. So she's absolutely right. And what we have to do is we've got to fight against this 2-tier justice system. We need to take it back for the people so that the people get justice. Okay. One more here before we take a break. It's another shakeup in the White House. All right. So there has been another shakeup in Trump's White House. Former Fox News executive Bill Shine, is being reported, has now resigned from the Trump administration. Now, Shine was serving as the communications strategist for the Trump White House. And according to Bloomberg News' Jennifer Jacobs, Shine, even though he quit from the White House, he will then be going as a senior advisor to the 2020 Trump campaign. So here you have another person from the Trump White House leaving that position and going right to work for his re-election campaign. Now, I want to read you the tweet here. Bill Shine offered his resignation to the president yesterday evening, and the president accepted. Bill continues to support President Trump in his agenda and will serve as senior advisor to the 2020 re-election campaign, Sarah Huckabee Sanders said in a statement. Now, again, he's working for the campaign, but there are stories of the reason why Shine left. And again, this is just, you know, these are stories where President Trump, according to aides, was not thrilled with the job that he was doing. Now, for example, White House correspondent Katie Rogers, who worked for the New York Times, noted that there was tension between Trump and Shine in the White House because the former Fox News executive, quote, wasn't getting the results the president expected. What kind of results? What does he mean by that? I mean, look, Bill Shine worked for Fox News. We know that. Fox News is virulently pro-Trump. Also, we know that. So what kind of thing was he expecting? Positive news coverage. I think, from everyone else. Fox News already gives him extremely positive news coverage. So what was he expecting? I don't know. I don't know. Now, this resignation apparently came to a surprise by Schein's allies in the administration. So that's interesting. Now, in recent months, according to Katie Rogers and Maggie Haberman of the New York Times, they reported back in January that Schein wasn't getting results. Chemistry continued to fizzle in recent weeks, and Schein had been absent at big moments, like, for example, the recent trip to Vietnam. They also said that in recent months, former and current administration officials said that Trump had complained about his media coverage and blamed Schein in part for not making it more positive. Well, that's like an impossible job. Again, I don't like Bill Schein. I really don't like the relationship between Fox News. It is very incestuous, by the way. Fox News and the Trump White House. Imagine if Barack Obama had hired someone directly from MSNBC to serve as a communications director. I don't think Republicans would be very happy about that, right? No, they'd be screaming bloody murder. But when it comes to Donald Trump, the Republicans are like, no, go ahead. Hire anyone you want, especially from Fox News. In fact, people from Fox News, like Jeanine Pirro, openly have wanted a spot in the Trump White House. And every day they go in the air, they're begging for it. They're begging for it. Hilarious, right? But anyway, as far as the disagreements were, I don't have any details on that. The report didn't have any details on that. But here we go. Another turnover. To be fair, though, Schein did last longer than a couple of Scaramucci's. To be fair. But at the same time, it was 7 months. Turnaround is huge. The turnaround in this administration, or the turnover, I should say, is absolutely amazing. Everyone who goes to Trump's 2020 re-election campaign, by the way, are going there for one reason. They're going there to get paid. So, 100%. You know that's the reason. Even though the president not happy with them, I'm sure they're like, just go to Trump's campaign, you'll be fine. And you'll end up getting a ton of money. Even though Trump might lose, or is in a very good position to lose, I don't care, you're still going to get money. So, and now, of course, it looks like it's Schein's turn to be paid, despite making the president not look good in the press, or failing to make him look good in the press, which, again, is an impossible job. So what else was he supposed to do? As far as the position itself, Donald Trump is basically his own communications guy now. So that's fun. That should be fun and interesting as things continue to get worse for the president. Okay. So I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We got more stories for you right here around the nation. I'll read your super chats. Stay right here. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Okay, so let's see. I have some, first some super chats to read out, and then I want to read a couple of member comments as well. Okay, so let's go to super chats first. iFart Magic says, good luck on the move. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, like, we're not even sure we're going to get the house yet, right? So we got one, we picked it out, we put a bid on it, we got all that stuff, right? And everything's accepted, everything's good on that end. Now it's getting the loan, right? So, like, we got pre-approved, but then, like, oh, conditional approval, etc. You need about 4 mountains of paperwork, and we're not sure if the underwriter is going to approve you. So that's the situation that I'm at, and I think we'll find out what else we need to do on Monday. So it's extremely stressful, very frustrating, but also to look at being able to even be a homeowner, which is something that I'd never imagined. Which, by the way, our mortgage would be cheaper than the rent that we pay, so that's how rent really screws you. Twice the house for less than we pay in rent. It's insanity, right? But we are very, very fortunate. So, and you know, every day I think about how fortunate I am to be able to be into this situation. Because like people that are in LA and New York and in these places where rent and housing is extremely high and expensive, I feel for you guys because, being a homeowner, like, okay, rent can easily rip you off. Of course. And that's, and unfortunately there's a lot of people that are not able to take that advantage and to be able to have a shot at getting a home. So, and I thought that was going to be me for the rest of my life. So, but thank you so much. I appreciate the well wishes on that. The housing crisis is insanity that we have today, and we absolutely need to do something about it. Okay. Anyway. iFart Magic again says, we just put in a bid house too. It's insane. Good luck to you as well. So, I appreciate the help, and I appreciate you guys. And good luck. Good luck as well. All right. There was one comment that I wanted to read as well, going back here during the break. I believe it was from, let's see. I had it here. Oh. No. Okay. The Zero asked, what I want to know now, Manafort recommended Pence to Trump. So what did Pence do for Manafort? That is a good question. Very interesting stuff. And I'm actually looking forward to getting the answer to that question as well. Okay. Let's see. Oh, and Sirot is also a Michigander as well. So just be careful looking at in Detroit. There's some nice places there, and then there's some not so nice places. No, it's not so nice places there as well. So anyway. Okay. Let's move on. We got important stuff. Chelsea Manning, go. Disastrous news for hold on here. I'm getting way distracted because I just saw another super chat. Thank you, Jonathan Scott. Why don't I just read that real quick? Because I want to address it. It says, I hope your politics won't interfere with your loan. Good banks are hard to find. Yeah, I know, right? That's always a consideration. Look, my politics will not change, right? So something that always bothers me when you think about like Dave Rubin, for example, and how Rubin took advantage of people for money, right? Like took advantage of not only politics, the politics of TYT and the people there just in order to make money. And that's like super, super gross. And so I could not see a situation ever where I could ever betray my politics and my political beliefs in order to gain, and so it's gross, even if it means that I wouldn't get a house or wouldn't get a loan. But, it is scary to think about, like, how that online reputation could end up hurting you. So, but anyway, okay, now we'll go to Chelsea Manning. Sorry. All right. Bad news for people who believe in the free press. It appears that Chelsea Manning is back in jail for refusing to give testimony. Now, the New York Times is reporting that Manning is now back in jail because she refused to answer questions about WikiLeaks in a criminal inquiry into both WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. Now, this is not over Russia. This is not over the Hillary Clinton leaks. This is actually going back to when Chelsea Manning had actually leaked to WikiLeaks the information on, for example, during the Iraq War and some of the war crimes that our troops had been shown on camera committing. Now, this is something that the Obama administration had pursued, and then afterwards dropped. President Obama did end up commuting the sentence of Chelsea Manning as one of his last acts. But now that probe has been revisited and revived by the Trump administration. So they convened a federal grand jury, and they have subpoenaed Chelsea Manning to testify, to which she refused to do. Now, during her testimony on Thursday, it's to show you kind of how fearless she is. She responded to every question that they asked by saying, "This violates my constitutional rights." That's awesome. Now, unfortunately, Judge Claude H. Hilton of the Federal District Court in the Eastern District of Virginia ruled that Manning must stay in civil detention until she testifies. So now that's interesting, right? So she's subpoenaed to testify, she refuses to testify, and they can literally hold her in jail until she decides to either testify or the grand jury gets disbanded. So this is literally holding someone hostage for their testimony. That's what's going on here. So they are compelling her, basically with jail time, to testify against WikiLeaks in some fashion. And we don't know. We don't know exactly 100% the questions that they're asking. But we're pretty sure, according to the New York Times and The Intercept, that this has to do with both WikiLeaks and Assange during the Obama era. So now this is hugely problematic. Whether or not you like WikiLeaks, whatever you think about Julian Assange, you have to remember that WikiLeaks is a journalistic organization. And yes, journalistic organizations, by the way, can have bias. And you look at CNN, MSNBC, you look at Fox News, bias, right? Now, whether you think they have a bias towards Russia, etc., forget that, right? Because at this moment, they can use this as a vehicle to go after other journalistic organizations as well. Now, the New York Times reports that there were multiple reasons to believe that the subpoena is related to the investigation of Mr. Assange, including the district where the subpoena was issued and the assistant United States attorney that requested the subpoena, who was tied to the prosecution of Julian Assange. Another Assange associate, David House, told the Washington Post that he testified before the grand jury as well. Quote, "It was all related to disclosures around the war logs," House said, in reference to the Iraq War documents that Manning released and WikiLeaks published. So, nothing about Russia, but everything about releasing those logs from the Iraq War that deeply embarrassed the military and deeply embarrassed the Obama administration. And now, for some reason, Donald Trump wants to carry that on. That's super weird, but also super relevant, because it's not just a case against WikiLeaks and it's Julian Assange. This is actually a case against the First Amendment, against Article 1, which establishes a free press to hold people in power accountable. What is the one thing that Donald Trump hates the most, other than Hillary Clinton? The free press. They hate the media, they hate the news, and they want to come out with alternative facts. This is fascism. Fascism. 100%. So this was about the Trump administration using this to go after, to go after the media. And for that, we go to The Intercept. They write that it should go without saying that were the grand jury related to the prosecution of Assange for revealing government secrets, this would have profound implications for the First Amendment in the media, which the Trump administration, they point out, has consistently demonized and threatened. The press, it's the enemy of the people. It's the enemy of the people. That's what Donald Trump continues to say over and over and over again. Fake news. Oh, this is bad. Trump also has made it clear that he wants to see Manning back in prison. When, within the first days of him taking office, Trump tweeted this: Manning, ungrateful traitor, who should never have been released from prison. Well, apparently she is now going back to prison for not testifying. Sickening. Sickening. Now, I want to go to a statement here from her support committee that said, I object strenuously to the subpoena and the grand jury process in general, which of course is pretty much in the dark, unaccountable. You can't really know what they're talking about, etc. They said, we've seen this power abused countless times to target political speech. I have nothing to contribute to this case, and I resent being forced to endanger myself by participating in this predatory practice. And that is from Manning. So this is what the Trump administration is doing. More targeting of whistleblowers, worse than even the Obama administration, and of course, attacking the press. She faces up to 18 months of imprisonment for refusing to testify for this grand jury. This is coercion. Again, if you agree to talk and testify, they offered her immunity. Oh no, go ahead and testify so we can take down WikiLeaks, we can take down Julian Assange, and then we can use this to go after the rest of the media. But at least you're free. You're good. But if you refuse, then we're going to hold you in contempt and put you in prison for the next 18 months. Coercion. Absolutely. And again, this is punitive, right? Now, I want to go to Manning's civil rights attorney, Moira Metzer-Cohen, who said this statement. While the federal grand jury purports to be a simple mechanism for investigating criminal offenses, it can be, and this is her talking to The Intercept about the grand jury process, and historically has been used by prosecutors to gather intelligence to which they are not entitled. For example, about lawful and constitutionally protected political activity, which includes speech, which also includes, by the way, holding your own government accountable. Assange's prosecution for publishing Manning's leaks would expose other outlets, by the way. And that's why this is the danger. Again, if you don't care about WikiLeaks, that's fine. If you don't care about Julian Assange, that's fine. But do you care about the Washington Post? Do you care about the New York Times? Do you care about CNN? Do you care about Fox News? This would give the government the power to shut those organizations down if they have at all touched anything that was leaked from the government. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, you should look at this as deeply, deeply dangerous. Dangerous. Again, the documents that were published by Manning were also published by The Guardian, The Washington Post, and The New York Times. If you punish WikiLeaks for doing this, you open all those other agencies, those news agencies up to, and of course, that's liability, and that would set a hugely problematic precedent for journalism in general. Imagine the government being able to compel leakers to testify against those organizations who disseminated their leaks by throwing you in prison. And dangling the, oh, don't worry, if you just testify to what you said against these outlets, well, then you're free. Anybody who cares about press freedom in this country should be deeply, deeply disturbed by what's going on here right now and has to stand by Chelsea Manning. One last line here from The Intercept here. that points out the role that Manning is specifically playing. The fact that it is Manning who must once again bear the weight of the government against her and risk more jail time is a stinging injustice for an activist who has already endured so much for exposing vital and damning truths. Remember, this is somebody who went to jail, who went to prison and was tortured, and nearly committed suicide twice because of the torture that she had received. Here she is doing it again. She's protecting our rights. She's doing the right thing. Manning stood up for us already. She stood up for us twice. And for us and for the First Amendment. Now we need to stand up again for her. If democracy really does die in darkness, then it's up to us, the people, to be the light, like she is. Free Chelsea Manning. Some heavy shit. All right. Moving on. Let's have some fun. So normally a hearing on whales and the health of whales tends to not get too much attention in the media. Well, Representative Joe Cunningham had a little bit of a solution to that and was very innovative. Now, during his hearing, a Trump administration official had testified about firing commercial air guns into the water. Now, the reason they do this is for oil and gas exploration. Now, this official who had testified said that firing these guns underwater would have no effect on endangered species or any of the animals in the area. Oh, really? Now, the story, of course, is about the North Atlantic right whale. Now, these animals happen to use echolocation to communicate, feed, mate, and keep track of their calves, right? Like many ocean animals, they rely on sound. Now, Cunningham was in the middle of questioning Chris Oliver. Now, Oliver is the Assistant Administration for Fisheries for the Trump administration. And this hearing was set up to determine whether or not 5 companies will be awarded permits from the Interior Department to begin this kind of testing between the coastline of New Jersey and Florida. That's a long stretch of coastline, by the way. So they are going to try and search for oil and gas deposits using these 10-second bursts of sound. Oh boy. Now, in the hearing, Cunningham asked, quote, "Is it fair to say seismic airgun blasting is extremely loud and disruptive? Is that correct?" Oliver replied, "I don't know how exactly loud it is. I've never experienced it myself." And that's when, of course, Cunningham decided to show just what that was like.
Was that disruptive, Mr. Oliver?
So it was irritating, but I didn't find it particularly disruptive.
Yeah. What about every, say, 10 seconds? Like seismic air gun blasting goes on for days, weeks, months.
If I were that close to it, yeah, probably.
Yeah. What if you depended on sound for hunting your food and for communication? Do you think it would be disruptive?
At a distance of 20 feet, yes, it would be.
How much louder do you think seismic air gun blasting sounds than this air horn you just heard?
I honestly don't know.
Take a guess. 10 times?
At a distance of how far?
Well, say you're within a reasonable distance. Say you're within a quarter of a mile. Is it 10 times? 25 times?
Honestly, don't know.
I mean, can you take a guess?
No.
100 times? You think it's 1,000 times louder?
I doubt it.
Doubt it. What if I were to tell you it's 16,000 times louder than what you just heard here?
Damn. I love that. Was that disruptive? I'd say it was pretty disruptive. You know what? I actually turned down that air horn. That was much louder, but I kind of wanted to save your guys' ears, so you can thank me later. No, I love that, right? So 16,000 times up. Louder than that. And again, we're talking large areas, we're talking miles, right? Still incredibly loud. Now, maybe it might be like hearing it from down the hall. That is annoying. And if you heard it every 10 seconds, it would likely drive you insane. And let's be honest about that, right? Now, interestingly enough, in that very hearing, Subcommittee Chairman Jared Huffman broke into the debate after he blew that horn just to say an aide who was pregnant informed him that when the air horn sounded, her baby ended up kicking. So even the baby is like, hey man, that's disruptive. That's annoying. Don't do that. Now, look, if it's annoying to us, and it would be, right? Imagine if you had to use sound primarily for finding food, navigating, etc. And not only that, but human beings, we're not on the endangered species list. We are making lots of other species on the endangered species list, which includes, of course, the North Atlantic right whales. There are actually about 400 left. The birth among 100 mating pairs is actually so rare that 7 calves spotted recently were celebrated with a party. Oh my God, they're not dead. Yet, for some reason, the Trump administration seems rather committed to finishing them off by granting those permits. Oliver said right whales are more commonly killed by boat strikes and getting entangled in fishing nets. Again, both human activitities, right? And that NOAA Fisheries is focused on stopping that. He emphasized that studies have shown that some adverse effects from seismic testing, but that those were, quote, sublethal. Sublethal. So yeah, it's not quite lethal, so it's good. We're good. We're just going to sit there and blare a horn underwater every 10 seconds for months at a time. Hey, but it's not going to kill them outright. It's just going to annoy the crap out of them. Well, actually, it does far more than that, according to experts who testified. Now, one of them was Scott Krause. Now, Scott Krause is a vice president and senior science advisor for the New England Aquarium. He said that these tests will stress out an animal that's already struggling from a lack of disease resistance, as is in this case. He said many right whales now have poor body scores that are just above the threshold of reproductive success. He suggested that any additional stressors will push them below any ability to reproduce. Well, what is a stressor? Or I should say, what would you consider stressful? I would think an air horn going off in your ears every 10 seconds, even down the hole, would stress you out. I wouldn't want to mate under those circumstances either. That'd stress me the hell out. Now, another scientist, Christopher Clark, senior scientist and research professor at Cornell, said that there's nowhere for the animals to hide from the seismic noise. He said it travels efficiently underwater, radiating for thousands of miles from where it starts. And that's also true. Now, the bowhead whale, close relative of right whales, also reacts to extremely low levels of seismic noise from very far away. So it will probably mess with them too. In fact, Clark said it continues reacting until it totally stops communicating. For right whales, such changes will increase the likelihood of mother-calf separations. It's not physical harm to a single individual, but this is a cause to a marginally surviving population as a result of chronic noise from seismic air gun surveys. So what they're saying is, we do these tests, and we might as well be sending this species to extinction. We're going to wipe them out. Now, I know some of you might think, that's not important. The oil, we need oil and gas, exploration. Got to have energy. Fuck the whales. Probably shouldn't have said that, but try not to swear, but sometimes, man, it just, but look, the point is we are losing biodiversity at an alarming rate. Now, every governor in the Eastern Seaboard, of course, from Massachusetts to Florida, both Republicans and Democrats, thankfully, are against this, right? Now, they're against this not because of the whales, let's be honest, but because beach tourism, right? How's this going to affect tourism when you have these horns going off all the time? But hey, you know what? Whatever the reason, great. I'll take it. Again, this is part of oil and gas exploration anyway, which at this point we shouldn't be doing. Climate change? I mean, we need to focus on alternative energy. We've got less than 12 years to do something about it. So we need to keep it in the ground. And that's not only good for all of us and the environment, but it's also good for the whales. It's a win-win for everyone. Okay. So that's it. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining. Thank you for the super chats. I didn't get a chance to do the patrons shout outs. So we'll do a couple of those right now. I want to thank Jake Z, James Boschma, James Huth, James Wormley, Jane Ferry, Janet Allen, Jared Niemeyer, and Jasmine Mann for helping the show. Thank you so much. Love you guys and the rest of you as well. Thank you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys on Monday. You have a great weekend.